Ginger Zee, the chief meteorologist at Good Morning America, predicts weather for a living. But according to her New York Times best-selling book, it hasn't been as easy to predict her mental health journey. Her memoir, Natural Disaster, I Cover Them, I Am One, details her unexpected swings into what she calls a black hole of depression. After overcoming an abusive relationship and admitting herself to a psychiatric hospital, Ginger is successfully managing her own mental health. Welcome to the MedCircle Spotlight series, Ginger Zee, Weathering Depression and Finding Help at a Psychiatric Hospital. I love the byline here. I cover them, I am one.
Yeah.
Most people would not admit to being a natural disaster, but you do very freely. Why is that?
I have to, because I think this was the moment in my life that I was ready to say, this is actually what's happening behind that smile that you're seeing, behind the smile. Because I think I had it too many times where people are, aren't you pure sunshine? I'm like, well, not really.
Yeah.
And you don't get sun without having storms before. I just felt like that story needed to be told. And it gave me a little bit of complexity and depth that I think people had no idea about. And you don't get in 30 seconds, you know? So, and I think the intent to write the book wasn't about any of that. I went to a publisher saying, hi, I'm a scientist who ended up on TV. I have this great platform. My dream of life is to write a book for babies about weather, because I was having a baby and I was finding that there was no weather book out there. And so I came up with this character and all this stuff. They said, you know, that's not really a baby board book. Plus, that's a really hard market if you're not like Jimmy Fallon. So why don't you try a tween book and write that? And I said, oh, I'm not a writer. I've been told that since I was in 6th grade, just not a writer. And then they said, why don't you just try it? And I said, fine. And I went back and wrote 2 chapters and they were like, this is great. We love it. And then we started talking about what I was going to base that book on, which are the Helicity series that I wrote. And as I'm telling them stories. And all of a sudden, once you get to know me, this is what happens. I'm talking about baby book and science. And now I'm talking about depression and not getting married. And they're like, that's a book. And so I went to write a 60-word book for 2-year-olds and came out with a suicide-laden depression book for adults. And then it went on the New York Times bestseller list.
Okay.
And so how about that teacher that said maybe writing's not my thing? I don't know. Maybe it is.
Get it out there. Okay. We're laughing about depression, which I kind of love. Yeah. Actually, I really love it because when I get to talk to a lot of patients, a lot of doctors, a lot of mental health people, and it's always this very sullen, like, now depression affects 40 million people, all that stuff. And when I read your book, I was chuckling, I was laughing, even when you were talking about your depression. The question I have for you is, why do you think you have depression?
I know I have depression because I can wake up, I can be as well as I am today, and then tomorrow I wake up and I don't feel well. And I know.
Why is that?
I don't know. That's the part I think none of us know.
Right.
And I wish I knew. And I wish I had, listen, I forecast for a living. I predict things for a living. How great would it be to know, you know, I shouldn't be around my family or friends or coworkers on Thursday, because that's going to be the day I wake up and have the beginning of what, who knows, is going to be a 2-month or a 2-year, you know, stretch of depression. That's hard. And to distinguish between bad day, feeling low, and depression. I think I'm fortunate that I've been able to experience a lot of that. I say that in that way, like fortunate that I was able to distinguish those things, because there is a difference. And I know that difference very well. And it really is a black hole I usually wake up with. And that's something that I am so fearful of still, because I think you could never say that I'm not, but I'm prepared for. And that's the difference in my life right now, and why I think I've been able to ward off some of it, or at least keep it at bay at certain times. I'm aware of when I feel it at first. I don't know that it's coming tomorrow, but when I do feel it coming on in the morning and I feel that, here we go, I know my tools and I know how to reach out and I know the people to go to.
Before you knew the tools and the people, what did you think that was?
I think I always thought that it was starting as a bad day. I just think I woke up and it was a bad day.
When people say, I got off on the wrong side of the bed or whatever.
Yeah, I think it was as simple as that. And I never gave it enough effort, time, or gravity. I never said to it, this is important, because I wasn't important. And I didn't have value. And I didn't respect myself or my own feelings. And I didn't think anybody else would. Why would they if I couldn't? And that's something that I've learned. And I'm still learning. I mean, that's the hardest part, I think, of someone who, and depression comes from so many places. It feels different for a lot of people. But what I do know is that feeling of nothing else matters. Nothing matters. I mean, it doesn't matter what you have in your life or whether it's the best job ahead of you and that's why it doesn't discriminate, depression, it shows up in different ways, but the end result is the same for people, I think. And it is so dark and so deep. And that's why this was so important for me to write and to tell people is like, I think I don't know the type you have. I don't know. They're all different where they come from, but I know what it feels like. And I know what it feels like to not want to live. Yeah. And that's an important thing to talk about.
I loved how you said in the book that you wanted to share your personal experience with depression, because when people think Ginger Zee, they think bubbly, good morning, it's Ginger Zee. Yeah, right. And I think that makes the perfect face for depression. Yeah. Because depression isn't always the person crying in the corner who hasn't left their house in 10 days.
My most depressed times were my happiest, where I was the most, because that's the acting of it. If you don't want people to know, if you want to isolate, then you put on your face where you need to. And this is what people do all over the world when they have depression. And I think some of the most severe depression is when you see people who are at their most joyful, most blessed, most grateful. I think that's something that's kind of a calling card to beware of once in a while. Of course, you can be really that happy, and that's great. Yeah. But there are also, I think that's how you have a juxtaposition within a person. They don't know any way to go, full out. I'm really happy. Yeah. And then when they get that turns off, it's much like TV. The camera of life turns off and they go and isolate and they turn into their most depressed self.
On 219 in your book, I literally highlighted just that one line. It says, one of the greatest deterrents to depression is purpose. What is your purpose?
I think this is part of it. I think that I found it in writing this book. I think that being able to share all of my dirty, messy, natural disaster has made me have purpose beyond just being me. Number one is having children. I think that really did change my life. It does for so many people. And it forced me to look at myself fully and wanting to be the absolute best person, and getting into my marriage with Ben, because I don't think, it's not that I have purpose because I'm married. You don't have to be married to have purpose. Right. But I do matter to someone, and I let that person love me. I let myself matter to someone else. It was much easier when I was just dating really messy and I didn't matter to anybody, because that's a much safer place to be. And my poor mom and dad, why didn't I ever give them the credit of me being important, or giving me the importance of being important? But finding purpose in your life is a huge deterrent, because then you realize it's not about you, and you can help other people. So I think that gives great credence to gratitude, and all of those things come from those places of purpose, because you realize you have it.
Now, how do you find your purpose?
Well, everybody has purpose. Yes. I think that's, you don't even have to go find it. I think that being open to letting others see your purpose, or just say, if you know your purpose, which a lot of people do. A lot of people have the dream or the whatever it is in them, but they're afraid of it. They're afraid of saying it out loud. They're afraid that it's too silly. Whenever a student comes to me and they're like, they're doing an internship, and just a lot of times we'll just have news ones come in. I'm like, well, what are you doing this for? Where did this come from? Knowing and being honest with yourself about that story, about where the intent of, because your career, a lot of people find purpose in, but a lot of people don't. So being able to be realistic and honest at the beginning and saying that to yourself, that's important too. But purpose in yourself, right? Finding purpose in life, that might just take time. And I think giving yourself grace and time to find that is okay too. Realizing that there's purpose somewhere. I know it is. Yeah. I'm going to find this. Yeah. It's going to come to fruition, give it some time. Yeah. I think that's important.
Have you talked to your kids about your depression?
They're not quite old enough. I mean, my 3-year-old I think he would understand if I started talking about it, but he's just starting to figure out death in general. And we had a dead bird by the side of the door, right? And so it was the first time. And he said, well, is his mommy going to kiss him? And I said, well, yes. I don't know what to say. Yes. Yeah, sure. Of course he is. Yeah. Let me go get the snow shovel. Yeah. My husband's such a wuss. He's like, you take care of it. I can't do that.
That is also the cutest thing ever. Is the mommy going to kiss him? I know. So you're having to teach him about these big ideas when he is older, or when your kids are older. Are you going to talk to him about that, and how will you?
I think I have to. I think because genetically, I think we don't know everything, but there could be a possibility. Between my husband and I, there's a pretty distinct possibility that one or both of them could have something. And I would like them to just be aware, open, all the things that none of us were 30 years ago. And I think we've gotten so much better. Like you said, we're sitting here talking about it. You have a show about it. We're talking about depression and suicide so openly now, which is great. I just like to come and talk about things because I don't think it should stop at just, okay, now we've said it and the stigma's gone. I think it needs to go to the action. And that's where I want to teach them, is that this isn't about, at this point, the royals are into it. We're all talking.
Yeah.
Now what?
Yes.
And that's it.
You haven't said it. I have a strict rule that we're not allowed to use the phrase build awareness.
Yeah.
Awareness. I go, what good is that doing?
No,
if you're getting punched in the face and are aware of it, you're still getting punched in the face.
Yeah.
You know, we have to do that action.
Yeah, and that's what I'd like to teach them is not only what are signs, what are these feelings, but it's from the young age, the part that I didn't have and I wish was taught in school is just emotional health. Because I think my husband and I will do a better job, and not to knock my parents, but I don't think it was even a thing. You know, as it is in a lot of families, it's not. Why don't kids know that women have 3 holes? Like, not to be really, but that takes a long time for people to realize, even the women that have them. Do you know what I'm saying?
Isn't that the truth?
But if we don't know that about our physical body, then how do we not, of course we're not going to know about these things. So I think it's more than being open, but it's like health class. You take it once and you're taught about your body once, and that's not enough. You're never taught about your mind. You're never taught about what to do with your emotions. That needs to be something we do. And since I don't think schools are going to be quite there, I'd like to be a homeschooler of emotional health. And as soon as they want, I'm happy to go to therapy, even if they're happy as a clam in 2nd grade. Talk it out.
Yeah.
Have a person to go to.
Yeah.
I don't think you need to build therapy in, but you need to make it an option and as early as possible, because that would have helped. I think my mom was very good about saying therapy, you need to go to therapy, but I wasn't ready. So that's hard too. And also that was when I got to a point that I really needed it. Maybe if it had been a little bit more normal, maybe it wouldn't have even got there. I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah. In your book, you said thinking you did not deserve peace and love as a child. That really struck a chord with me. It hurt me to think that there was a child out there who thinks that they do not deserve peace and love.
Yeah.
Why did you feel that way?
I think a lot of children feel that way. When we were growing up in chaos, and mine is a different type of chaos. And this is the hard part, is I'm talking like this, and there are kids out there who haven't had breakfast and won't have lunch, so there's always some level of saying, but that's the thing about mental health, is that it doesn't discriminate and it doesn't matter what you have. And I think, of course, there can be situations that are helpful or hurtful. I didn't think that I deserved peace or love because I didn't have that. I don't think I had love. I think my parents loved me in their way, but the peace, we didn't have anywhere around me. And that was a big part because my parents were divorced, a big part because my mom was mentally unstable and didn't know how to care for herself. So then she couldn't care for us in the right ways, all the right ways. She did so well in like 80% of it, but in the 20% that would have been the peaceful, calm, healthy, happy kind of retreat or reprieve that home is, we didn't have that. And so I think that I not only got hooked on the chaos, but got hooked on the feeling of I don't deserve it because this isn't what I've been given in life. It's not around me. I don't have a place to go that is that place. Dad's was this way, mom's was this way. We were always back and forth, if not traveling other places, and there was just a lot of turmoil.
And what a bizarre arrangement.
So weird.
When you said the judge should hang up his robe, I was like, yeah, he should. Yeah. That was the weirdest. Explain, if they haven't read your book, what the arrangement was.
So when my parents were divorced, I was 7, and they decided, okay, you've got mom's house from Easter till Christmas, and then once a week and every other weekend we were with my dad. So that's a weird thing anyway. Then on Christmas morning, we wake up at my mom's house, open gifts, have some breakfast, and then quickly, especially once he had kids, go to my dad's and move our entire lives on Christmas Day. And then move our entire lives on Easter Day. So holidays even, to me, are, and this is something I've had to work on for myself, we're never in one place. No. I was so comfortable with being uncomfortable, so comfortable with finding this strange arrangement as my reality from being 7 years old on. In my most formative years, I was shared on the most the big days. And it wasn't like some families do, okay, you're going to mom's house and dad's house, but you don't move your entire life that day for the rest of the winter or whatever it was. It was just a really poor idea. And as much as I know, but they wanted to be as fair as possible and give my dad time with us because he worked most of the summers, and then it didn't work. Don't do that.
I've been in therapy maybe 20-ish years. And you said something in your book that I have not learned for myself in 20 years of therapy, but I know it's true, is that the split of your parents and the desire to want attention for them lended itself for you and your brother to find professions in the spotlight. He's in a band with a microphone. You're all over the world on a microphone. And I mean, there's a reason I'm here too, I think. My mom died when I was 16. All I want is like my dad's approval. And I'm like, look, I'm on camera. I'm doing Ginger Zee. I'm important, And so do you think you would have ended up here if you hadn't have had the trials and tribulations from your childhood?
No. I don't think I would. I think that there's a real big shift that happens in me once my parents started having new families. And that sounds really like dramatic, but it was dramatic. And that's the thing, I don't think they gave enough effort to understanding how hard that is, and because they were in it themselves. It's weird for them too. Now as an adult, I can look at my parents' situations. Not only do you have a divorce, but then a couple of years later you get remarried, and then you both have new families. And so you have my dad, for example, who at 35 thinks he's kind of done having the 2 kids and the thing, and then it ends. And he's like, okay. And then a couple of years later, he meets this great woman, and okay. And now we're going to have kids together. And so he's doing it all over again 10 years later. It's very hard to divide your attention the same or give effort to, one and not feel like you're 2 different families. That's a built-in part of divorce and new families.
Right.
So I think as mainstream as it is, it's kind of like depression. It's like, we're all aware that is the modern family. What do you do about it? How do you treat it right? How do you give the attention to the play? And that's something nobody's doing, is like, well, what does that mean? And how do you treat the kids the same or make them feel important? And that's when my life changed. So I loved science. I loved math. I knew that meteorology had both of those. I saw Twister. That movie is the part that got me to say, I'm going to be Helen Hunt.
Thanks, Helen Hunt.
Thanks, Helen Hunt.
Yeah.
I'm going to work for a university. I'm going to storm chase. That was in my head.
Yeah.
Then once my dad had his daughter, and then every year there was a baby when I was 14, 15, and 16, and all of the attention slid. And I think I'm watching that and not cognizantly saying, well, wait a minute. I'm right here. I'm here. And so that starts to like be embedded in my brain. Then we had a big derecho. It's like a windstorm. That comes through. And now I'm thinking, I watched all the news coverage of it. I'm like, wait a minute. And they watched all of it. Both my parents were pretty invested because it like wrecked a lot of our hometown and the towns surrounding us. I'm like, oh, you guys like that? You like how the person who's a meteorologist is telling you that? So there was definitely something built in there. And then I go to storm chasing college, essentially. And one of my professors is like, you should check out TV. I think you'd be good at it. And I'm like, I did like that microphone. I liked how they were watching that. So it's impossible not to do that. And all I wanted was them. They didn't come to my games. They didn't come to, because they had infants at home.
Right.
Again, I understand now. I can't imagine trying to have a teenager and having what I have going on right now.
Yes, right.
Impossible, actually.
Right.
So it's not their fault. That's just how life ended up happening. And my mom was on bed rest for half of the pregnancies and things that she, so it's like thinking about the emotional toll. My stepmom had brain cancer during the whole thing. Being an adult and being a woman and a mom now, I look at what they did and I'm like, they did a pretty good job for what they were up against.
Yeah, and if this was the outcome, I mean, pretty good.
Yeah, but at the same time, is it directly related? I absolutely think so. And I don't. So thanks. That's how I say it, kind of as like, thankfully my parents got divorced.
If you like psychology and learning about mental health and want to learn more while meeting other people who are interested, explore your membership options using the link below this video or visit MedCircle.com.
You said that you're grateful for everything that's happened to you. And we'll talk in a little bit more about your relationship with a man, and it was a bad relationship, an abusive relationship, but you were even grateful for that. That was, I don't think I'm there yet in my life to be grateful for something that negative, that hurtful. But you are. How do you do that?
Because if I don't, I think I'd be in a really bad place. He is a person who, he also, I think, brought me to rock bottom. And I needed that. You know, it wasn't just him. It wasn't just, there was a lot of other things. I did. Yeah. I think I did. I think my mom, since I was 15, was telling me I needed to go to inpatient therapy, and I wasn't listening. And I think until I was hearing people around me saying, I don't know you anymore. I don't know who this person is. My best friends, and he brought me there. So in a way, he escorted me to the most healing in my life. And maybe had I not had that abuse and been in that situation, I don't know that I would have gotten there. And I might still be in the need of getting to a hospital. And that's the action I needed. So he created that action, right? So he put me, there was a point where I'm calling the police. And I had this big job ahead of me, and I had all these bright things in my future, and I'm like, what am I doing? Why am I here? How is this happening? Who am I? And that was what I needed, was to be in a police car.
This man you're dating, John, you go through these ups and downs. First he goes, you're great, we're going to get engaged, everything's going to be beautiful, and then he starts to tear you down. I mean, the things you quote him saying...
And this is a highly edited version.
A highly edited version.
8th edit.
Your editors were going, well, we can't
probably... A lot of lawyers. Apparently, you can't talk about people that aren't dead. You can't tell the truth about people that aren't. There's a lot more. There's so much more that goes to the abuse, but that's the rule, by the way.
Well, we'll maintain the rule.
Yes.
You're at this hotel. It's a blow-up fight.
Yeah.
You said, I wasn't afraid he would hit me. I actually used to ask him to hit me because I felt like it would be easier than what he usually put me through, which were hours and, days of emotional torment. What made this night different is that I truly couldn't take it any longer and needed help to get away. While I waited for the police to arrive, one thought grew as clear as my name. You have to get out. Everything is at stake. Your career, your emotional well-being, your sanity. So how the hell did I get under this table? How did a woman who worked so hard to grow up, to be successful, to learn to make better choices, to end an engagement, to give up a fancy apartment, to mentor young meteorologists get here? How did a woman who always tried to find the self-deprecating humor in being a natural disaster find herself fearing for her life? What's the answer to that?
I know how I got there, and that's that I didn't get help when I needed it. I never got to the point where I valued myself. The other thing about this is if you look at abuse, and I've learned this since by educating myself about abuse, another thing that does not discriminate. It doesn't matter how intelligent you are. It doesn't matter how much money you have. It doesn't matter where you live in the country. When someone is being abusive, it is their power over you. It doesn't make you weak. It doesn't make you a bad person. Granted, I was weak and I needed help. So I was like the perfect victim of abuse. And so why I got there is like textbook. I think I knew I wasn't worth it, and he saw that. And then he was able to keep me there. And I was a great dog for him to beat. Just like a puppy gets beaten by a horrible human being who does that. I think that's what I was for him. And I think that I was a really easy victim. And he was like, oh, good. I can keep her there for as long as I want. And I needed that in a way because I think that's where my strength eventually came from. Because anybody who's been in an abusive situation can be told a million times over, this is really unhealthy. This is not how things go. But when you're in it, you have no idea. And you just want to fix it. And you just want to make it perfect. And you can be better. And you can you can make him happy eventually. But there is no fixing a person like that. So I thought it was my issue. It was really in him. And that was something that that was the first lesson for me in boundaries and realizing that it's not always my fault. It's other people's choices and decisions that have to do with this world. And that's something that was built in from mostly my childhood. People pleasing, which is it's a common thing. A lot of people want that in their lives. And now having kids, it's really interesting to watch. The innate part of us, there's such a nature to it. My 3-year-old is me. He's worried about what everybody else, he's such an empathetic person from birth. He's going to need more training, emotional training on how to set boundaries with people, on how to not care, because I want him to care. I love how much he cares about other people. But like if his friend Dominic in preschool is having a bad day and then it ruins Adrian's day, like we got an issue, that's where we have to build the thing. And then life just keeps coming at you. Whereas my 1-year-old, he's already flipping us off with his eyes. Like he could care less what your deal is or what you have to do. And that's coming from the same parents in the same situation. Nothing has changed. And we have two totally different people. And so now melding those to be one, a little bit more empathetic and a little bit more like care what other people are saying once in a while, follow a couple of rules. And then the other is to build him up that he knows that he has value and truth. So I don't think it's all environment. I don't think my parents made me this weak people pleasing. Did they emphasize it? Yes. And that's where I think that I learned in that moment, something had to go. Something had to change because I had done all of those other things. And why was I going to let it end right here? Why was I going to let him keep me? And the other thing is, and I like I want to talk about the beginning.
Yeah.
I wish he would have, I still have that feeling. I wish I would have been in a physically abusive because I don't know what that is. And I felt like it could have been easier because it's like you get hit and you're done. Whereas you can be tortured. And I did, we do this thing every 5 years at ABC. It's like a training for if you're kidnapped and you're covering war or if you use first aid. So they put us in this like 2-day camp and they take us and they do these interrogations and all these things. I was really good at that because of him. And like, that's when I knew how much I was not wrong, is that they treated me the same way as if they were in the Middle East. You know,
your abusive boyfriend made you good at surviving being interrogated by terrorists.
Yes, that's what it was. And that's when I knew how bad. That's when it really put a cap on it, when I was like with flying colors making it through the interrogation, because I knew how to take so much from somebody and not be, you know, you can get broken down to a certain point, but he like conditioned me to do that. And then I think he liked that. It was a fun, you know, it was a good game for him to keep making me feel worse and getting me to that point and breaking me. And it, you know, maybe it takes an hour the first time, and then by the time 2 years has passed, it's a full 2 days or something.
There is a thought, I think, by a lot of people who would categorize emotional abuse below less severe than physical abuse or sexual abuse. But after reading that, I don't see how you could categorize them any differently.
Abuse is abuse.
Abuse is abuse, exactly.
And I think that it's, and there's, it doesn't stay with you any different. It took years, and it's still taking years of me figuring out how to be a stronger, better whole human because of how much that tore me to my core, right? And so although he led me there, I had to, and still have, I don't know if it's like a post-traumatic thing, but I still have moments of having to check myself on my value. And I'm like, wait a minute. It's like,
what do you mean by that? I'm confused.
He's not here anymore. He's not the one. So these people aren't doing that to me. So I'm reacting to them as if I'm being, you know, it's like my boss or something saying something. I think I'm reacting sometimes at first. My gut emotion is to react with that kind of abused puppy feeling. And now I have to be like, wait a minute, these people aren't doing this to me. Right. They're not doing this intentionally. They're not doing, and he wasn't either. And this is where I've been able to get to a place. This is the end of the longest answer ever. He wasn't doing this because I mean, he is evil in a way, but he's not. He's also a very hurt person, and it has been an emotionally abused person his entire life. And so in the R. Kelly situation, for example, I always thought if he just came out and said, I did this, and here's why. It's a circle of abuse that has been around forever, and I want it to stop right now. That would be the most powerful thing for him to do. And so that was my way, I hope, of breaking and hopefully helping somebody else that's in that circle. You know, I can't because I'm not the abuser, but if the abuser could get helped and the abuser could say, but that, you know, doesn't really make sense with them because that's, you know, their number one thing is they're not wrong. So, but that would have been so powerful. And I don't think I don't think any of these people mean to be from their core. Again, I don't think they go out being evil. There are very few people, I think, on the planet that go out to hurt. And where they come from, we're all babies at one point. We're all like these, but we're molded and melded, and then we make choices, and then the choices have to be defended. That is something in him that I don't know, that's why I'm able to get over it and be grateful for, because I realize he's hurting too.
Yeah. You have a great line in your book saying, if there's anybody out there in an abusive relationship and you think you're going to change them and it's going to somehow get better, it is not. No. You are not going to change anybody. No. That great Maya Angelou quote, right? When somebody shows you who they are, believe them.
Yeah.
You use that today, I'm assuming.
Yes.
Yes.
All the time.
Yeah.
That's something that's hard because you want them to be I think I saw it in myself. I saw it as like a bit of a game or well, that doesn't count for me. Like him, his career was everything and I was going to prove him otherwise. I was the one that was going to change it.
Yep.
Come on.
Yeah, he even said,
look at me.
I will never find a relationship more important than my career.
No,
and
he told me.
And you heard,
I'm that girl.
I'm a career person too. Yeah. We can, yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Let's switch real quick.
Okay.
Can we talk about Brad?
Yes.
Brad is your gay best friend / ex-boyfriend.
That's right.
What?
Classic.
What?
It's now that I've told the story, you cannot imagine the number of women who have come to me and been like, I have Brad too.
Like men that they dated.
Yes,
but
not that are friends with their husband, not like we are. Like we have a strange triangle going on where they're like buddies. So we just saw him on Friday. He's in Chicago. He's the main anchor at CBS now. When I met him, and the story is told there, I think we were both in a different place in our lives. I had just, I was in this relationship and engaged to a man to be married. He had gone to high school with this man, and so he knew him. Brad and I just had this. I have fallen in love with very few people, I would say, really fallen in love with. I really fell in love with Brad as a person. Yeah. I think that's what I think.
Why? Yeah.
Yeah. I think we both knew he was gay, but that didn't matter. We're in love with each other. I think we can fall in love. We can have in a human to human way.
I get that.
And that was confusing, especially given the other things that were going on in our lives.
Right.
And so we knew that I think we both knew it wasn't forever, but we dreamed hard together. And I was finding somebody, that's what I needed at that point, was someone who was going to build me up, support me, and push me to the next place. I did not feel
it wasn't like you're saying, oh, Brad's going to become straight, or Brad's trying to be like somebody he's not.
Yeah.
It's just like, man.
I think we didn't really give that enough attention, the whole actual sexual part of it.
Yeah, it's kind of critical.
Yeah, we were just looking at who could be the best partner. I'd never met a better partner in my life before I met him.
Oh,
and,
I love that.
Yeah, and I think a partnership, that's why some people are in business partnership together, And maybe that would have been a better, or a friendship partnership, that you want to be their best buddy so intensely that I think that's where it crossed over and we started making out. It's like...
Wow. I really wish I have so many questions for Brad.
I know.
Because I'm a gay man. I've never dated a woman.
He thought I was disgusting. Like if you really get to, because he thinks, but he always talks about the Kinsey scale, and he believes that he's right on the middle, like right before the crossover. So he does think that in that time, and if you read in the book, his dad had just passed, and his dad was his hero, and his dad and his mom had, and still, I would say his mom, it's been 15 years since he passed, has the biggest love affair with their father, like in the most beautiful. That's how every marriage and every relationship should be. He had that as a model. So he had real love from his father. He had real love from his mother, and he saw them have real love even before the kids. They just had such a special relationship, and he wanted that. And he had been gay for, out for a couple of, not really that out, but out enough, and hadn't found any success. And I think that was really disheartening.
Well, and this was in a small town in Michigan, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So he hadn't really had the opportunity to go elsewhere. He hadn't seen anything else or done anything else. So he's thinking, maybe I was wrong. Maybe I should try this because, and if I'm going to do this with someone, I want it to be this person.
That would be Ginger, right?
That's it.
Yeah.
And that's where we were. And so I think then reality set in and we realized he's gay, and then
I love it. I read that
or that I'm straight is the way it should be, and I'm not a gay man,
Yeah.
And he always says that that's the other thing, is he may be right on the Kinsey scale, but he thinks I'm right on the other end.
Yeah,
He thinks that I'm right about,
Yeah.
So that it almost made sense, and he's like, you're more masculine than half the guys I've dated, and you're and he likes that.
What does he mean to you?
Brad is, he's the checkpoint. He's like the father figure in a strange way. He's the person, he's erratic and dramatic and he has all his things, but when it comes to like a real answer or something that I'm really dealing with and toying with, he's the person I would go to after my husband. Really, that's what I say too, is Ben is the straight version of Brad. I found the guy on just the other side of the Kinsey scale, because my husband's nearly gay.
No.
Nearly. We're this close.
Yeah.
And that's why it made sense. And their humor and their attention to people, the love and the communication that both of them have that I've only ever aspired to. I think that together we make like a really powerful team, and Brad will always be that to me. And what was most beautiful out of all of it is I found a man who not only accepted that, but like glorifies it. When I'm on the phone with my husband, Ben, when I'm on the phone with Brad, he's like, "Is that Brad?" He's like, "Put it on speaker. I want to know how he's doing." It's like, it's a very open, respectful relationship. But Brad and I still have our things. We're able to talk, and he's still my best friend. So there's that respect that Ben has for that relationship. But there's no trust issue. And that was important to me, is that we're both over it. We both know he's gay. But I think a lot of men on the husband side would have a very hard time with that.
Yeah, they would.
Because he's still an ex.
Right. Oh,
you were still
I didn't even think about that part.
Yeah.
Right.
You were still
an ex-boyfriend.
Yeah, but my husband loved. Do you know this original book? Like, I wrote originally without free-for-all, without any legal anything. My husband's like, do more boyfriends. You know I love the boyfriend stories. He loves hearing details about ex-boyfriends. He's really weird.
Well, then I wasn't even going to bring this up. I was really into that politician you were dating.
So was I.
I was like, oh, this is going to be, this is going to happen.
Loser.
He's such a loser.
Horrible human being.
Yeah. What did you learn from that?
Stop being so blind and stop being so, just like... Does that, expect more, ask questions, be the person who is important. You are worth that,
Absolutely,
in that story, he never gave me that, but I fabricated everything else he didn't need to. I made up everything about this person in our life together and all of these things. It's not even wool. He wasn't even pulling that much wool over. He was probably thinking, I can't believe this girl hasn't figured out that I'm engaged to be married.
Yeah. So you're dating this politician that you met on an interview.
Yes.
And then you guys start going out for drinks and casually dating, and then you fall in love.
I would say fell into lust.
Yeah, into lust.
Yeah, not to love per se, but I kept putting myself there in all of the situations that they're the biggest red flags I've ever seen. Yeah. I can't be in public with you.
And you go, that's okay, we'll just go to your apartment.
That's great.
Yeah.
You don't want to go anywhere except for your apartment. Wouldn't even come over to my apartment. Yep. I should have paid more attention to the doorman, being a little bit like, okay, another one.
Yeah.
Here comes in.
Ginger.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I was not important, and I should, fine, once or twice, but come on, months pass and I'm doing this and I think this is okay. It's not okay. And I knew it wasn't okay in my heart. I knew it wasn't okay. I should have been more aware. And that was so silly for me to just let somebody roll over it and not give myself enough value or respect.
But not uncommon.
No, not at all.
I think every single person.
Because had I known he was engaged or I was actually coming, I would have not done that.
Right.
But I was too... naive is not the word either, because that has too much victim in it. I wasn't being smart, and I wish I would have. And that's something I learned from that point forward, was not only is you need to expect more, but you need to ask questions, and it's okay.
And listen to the answer.
And then he was definitely lying, so I was listening.
Yeah, that's true. But for the other one, yeah.
Yeah, but letting him be mysterious, that's not a relationship. And also, it should never be that hard. That's in every relationship I had up until my husband. Everything was hard. Every boyfriend I was in, a relationship I was in, I wasn't expecting enough of myself or of them. And I think and I always thought there had to be some drama. There always had to be something that was difficult.
The chaos that you thrive in.
Yes. And then once I realized that doesn't need to be there, how easy and how pleasant it can be to be loved without all of the drama.
Oprah has said the same thing so many times. She goes, people think that love is supposed to be this love is painful, love is fear. And she's like, no, it's literally not those things.
It's the opposite of those things. And I wish that I would have learned that a little bit earlier, but these people all helped me to find that. It's not mystery. You shouldn't not know where the person is or where they go or where they come from or what. Those things are just part of life. Yeah. I already know you went to bed at 8 p.m. We just met each other.
Yes,
that's okay.
Right.
And I believe you.
So on page 7, you say, in my opinion, too often women are told that our ambivalence towards marriage is something we must work through. Ugh. In therapy, if necessary, so we don't get left behind and spend the rest of our lives with a bunch of cats and a freezer full of lean cuisine. Not that there's anything wrong with cats and lean cuisine, but explain that.
Because I did have someone who loves cats and has a lot of lean cuisine write me and been like, wait, are you making fun of that? And I'm like, no, I'm just using it as an example.
Right.
Goodness, I didn't know that I did know you existed. That's why I was using it as an example.
Yeah.
But I think that I societally was told over and over, especially in a small town in West Michigan,
I bet.
how important it was to have your partner in life. Now, what's funny about this is I don't think that it should be something where we're telling people, but I do think that it's something to aspire to have that partner in life. So it's like a strange thing where I do believe now that I think we should be honest that humans need partnership. I think we all are. Like when people say, you should really stay single for 3 years if you've had a 6-year relationship. It's like, where did you come up with that calculation? At the
And you're a scientist.
At the school of being a tree? Like that's not how humans work. And like, yes, I always jumped way too far, too fast into something else because I had other problems going on. I don't think there's one blanket answer for everybody. But I do think that societally we should back off on saying, here's what the only right way to go about this is, and this is what's going to make your life better. What's difficult and where we've come and why this has happened is because women from our origin, right? And it's funny because there's Amazon Prime had something called Unprotected. It was a documentary on women's rights, but it was so well done that it like went through all of the history of how being a woman, we've kind of had to turn ourselves into men in a way, and sometimes succeeded even greater. And so are we equal in all parts? Well, no, because one person has a womb and another person doesn't. So yes, there are different purposes of our life. Purpose is actually like physical purposes. But our society has changed too slow for that. I think we haven't been able to say, you should be able to have a baby when you're 25 if you want to, and be wherever you want in your career. That's where we need to get. We need to get to the place where we can make those choices and be open to that, because I think right now we think we have to wait, and then infertility comes in, and then there's this strange thing where it's like then later you back off of your career. It's a very strange thing to try to be everything all at once. I think we just need to societally say, how about we just let people be what they would like to be at the time they'd like to be it. And it's okay if you want to get married when you're 23 and it feels like that's the great.
Yeah, right. I get that.
That's it. And if you want to
that.
be 35, and if you want to be 50, and if you want to be 75, I just heard a story about these 90-year-olds that got divorced.
Oh, they just had it.
65 years of marriage, 70, whatever it was. It was such a funny story. Not funny, but funny.
It is funny.
Like, why now? What are you doing?
Like, are you going to go on like Match.com?
I have so many questions. I want to do a follow. I want to do a whole story.
Yeah.
But good for them. Fine. Whatever you want.
Right.
Like,
And that is their choice too. I get it. I love that.
yeah. And it made for a good story, but like, okay. So I think that's where we need to be. And yes, I think that there's a real, my mom grew up in Long Island, and I always tell her she spent too much time at like the West Michigan pools with my little sister, because she started asking, like, this is when I got out of college, there was just this, well, what are you going to do? And isn't that where it comes from first? Isn't the pressure always going to be from like, well, are you seeing anyone? Are you dating anyone? Because like, everybody around us is married. It's like, no, Mom, I'm not. And actually, for the next 10 years, I'm going to be a pretty huge mess. So I'm going to date a gay guy. Nothing's going to make sense for a while.
Yeah.
And I all but had the lean cuisines. I wish I would have had some cats and lean
you
cuisines
had
to
some
make
company.
it. Yeah.
Right. Instead of just Brad. In your book on page 160, you talk about writing about your psychiatric stay, and how there was a part of you that felt like people are going to think this is going to be a sign of weakness, but you hoped that it would be a sign of bravery.
Yeah.
I have talked to people who've gone to a psychiatric hospital who share those same feelings, where I only view it as bravery, because if you go to the doctor to fix your broken leg, I'm like, good for you. You needed to fix your broken leg. Why would people view you getting help in a psych hospital for your brain as weakness?
Yeah. And that's, I think, where we were talking about the awareness of therapy, I don't think is so mystifying anymore. I think a lot of people are very like, therapy's therapy. Everybody goes to therapy. Oh, my therapist, my this. It's all part of our normal culture. You do not hear people saying, I checked myself into an institute or a hospital or whatever it was, the psych ward, because there's a giant, I think, there is still a big problem with thinking that they are, and some of them are, the one I went to is very much like One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. There's a huge stigma with them. And I think that's my big question to myself all the time is, say drugs and alcohol. I think it's almost sexy to go to rehab. I did a stint at rehab. Oh, good for you. You're helping yourself. There's only positive, I think. I don't know anybody who would say anything else. I don't think that we're there, and I would like for us to be there
psych wards are just the rehab of mental health.
That's what they are. But doesn't have to come from drugs and alcohol. Right. Your issues, which are treated similarly in a lot of ways, addiction to chaos is an addiction to something, and then often do have prescription things or whatever to them. I don't think that we need to have the place in Malibu, because I think that part of why it worked was it scared me. And so I do think that that's important, but I do think they could be a little softer. I think that yes, you need to be stripped of your, everything so that you don't hang yourself in your room. There's a lot of actual medical reasons for a lot of these things. But I think being able to say, I'm so not well that not only am I going to go get this cast, but I'm going to be in traction for a couple of days. That's how broken my leg is. That's where the difference needs to come. And so being open and having people not feel like 3 days time off if you broke your leg would be very different if your coworker went for 3 days to a psych hospital.
You're right.
And that's where I think we could really make some progress in the actionable part, is just saying, yeah, that's what we should do. Because guess what? In 1 hour, a therapist can't get deep enough.
No.
In 3 days, 7 days, 2 weeks, you have the opportunity to dive deep, deep, deep and get to the base or the core. You have time to find the right therapist within that network. There's all of the things, and you're finally paying attention and giving it the time and necessity that it deserves.
What led you up to walking through those doors into the psych ward?
It was the abusive relationship. I was either going to kill myself or let him kill me. I mean, that's where I was. And I knew that I'd gotten so dark again. Even with this bright, bright job ahead of me and all these great things about to happen, that transition plus the abuse I knew I didn't want to die for the first time too, because otherwise I would have just tried to kill myself again.
You knew you didn't want to die
for the first time. Because mostly, and I talk about this with my therapist now a lot, is that I have had a couple of times in the last 8 years since I went to the hospital where I've woken up with that feeling of lost. Don't know how this is going to go. My initial reaction is always tell somebody, because that usually wards off a huge, because if I keep it to myself, that's where it's going to go deeper and darker. So I usually wake up, I would tell my husband, and I've done this a couple of times in our marriage. I'm like, having one of those days. Nothing matters. I need to say this out loud. I tell him. I usually call my mom and tell her. So it starts like that. This has helped me then to and doesn't mean that it's going to solve it. Doesn't mean it's going to go away. There are times where it's like days, weeks. The one time was weeks. And I'm just that's what the hospital gave me was the opportunity to say, use your network, use your tools, get out before it gets that dark. So I tell my therapist all the time now, I have those times, have those feelings start to happen, but my mind never goes to, I don't want to live.
It never does anymore?
It does anymore. It hasn't since I got real help.
So you always want to live.
Whereas 8 years ago, for 20 years, my first thing, if anything got hard, if there was conflict of anything, I just kill myself. That's how nonchalant it was.
You had that thought
all the time.
So suicide was your safety net.
Yeah. And then I used it so much as a safety net that I actually did it. And right. I didn't tell people every time I'm going to kill myself, or that's not what you do when you actually are going to kill yourself. You go and do it. Mm-hmm. And those were the times that it was the darkest. But there were lots of times where I just thought that would be easier than this, because I don't want to live anymore. I don't want to be here. There's nothing.
So what was the shift between the first part of your life, having that not wanting to live, mm-hmm. and now where at least you always have wanted to live?
Yes. I think that the biggest difference is knowing and being realistic that that's a feeling that's okay. My mind might go there for a split second, even now. And then I'm like, wait a minute, whoa. There's a million other things, that, and I might be as dark as I just want to get away. That's what I usually go to now, is like, I need to like get away from everybody, and I need to isolate, which is a lot better than needing to kill yourself. Mm-hmm. So I've improved. I would say I still go too dark, too deep, too quickly once in a while, but knowing how to pull yourself up and out of that, and knowing all the tools that I've learned, that's what's changed it, is I have tools now. I have kind of a checklist I go down, and I'm able to figure out before it gets to that point. And if it happens again where I can't get out and it's beyond weeks, I'm going to the hospital. Mm-hmm. It's just what I'm going to do, mm-hmm. because that worked for me. Mm-hmm. And so that's what I think a lot of people aren't allowing themselves to realize. You can just go. And it can't be bad. It's not going to hurt you to go. They can only help.
What was the worst part about being how long were you in the psych ward?
7 days.
7 days.
Yeah.
What was the worst part?
Well, I think the first moment of realizing that I had finally done it, I think being in the gown, giving, and the hospital socks, and then walking in and seeing absolutely a schizophrenic person, the true, and I say that, and I shouldn't ever say that. Everybody's mental health is equal. Everyone's journey is equal, because some are chemically or believed to be chemically induced, some are chemically helped, and they're different. But there's still mental health issues. It's just like saying a broken leg versus a brain tumor, right? So they're different types of medical things, but they all need to go to the hospital and get treated. That was like jarring, and I think that's where I just broke down right away. I was like, I can't believe I'm here. I tried to turn around and tell them, actually, I'm just kidding.
What'd they say?
I'm good. They're like, no, you kind of committed to this. They're really good at nudging you, especially a person like who's up. And then I felt bad at first, like I had that horrible feeling like, I can't believe I took a space in this place when there are people over here, then there's the empathy, people pleasing.
You gotta please.
Yeah,
wow.
I couldn't possibly give myself attention. And I wouldn't say that I wanted to leave. Yeah. I mean, I wanted to leave every day.
Yeah.
And the food's horrible, and and you're in a cold cell block. It very much feels like what I imagine prison to be like.
Yeah.
Isolated, but then group sessions with people that needed so much help, and then realizing and allowing myself to realize I needed so much help.
What was the best part about those 7 days in a psych ward?
Best part was the end, was realizing that I had done it, that I gave myself, and I had value enough to be there, and that I knew I had found a therapist that was already changing my thought process. That was it. That this was worth it. That I actually had a future, and that I knew that I could get better. That is what it gave me, was real hope.
What do you like about Dr. Wilson?
I love his coldness. I think it's so funny.
You're the only person who's ever said that they love the coldness in their therapist.
No, I love that he just doesn't care what I say, and he's like, you're wrong, or you're right, or this is what this is called. And he's so not there to please me at all. I don't think he's there to please anyone. I don't even know what he would be like in a social situation, but in a patient to therapist, he's perfect, because he just gives me answers to the things that I need answers to. He'll stop me when I'm bullshitting or when I'm getting close to it. And I don't even know that I'm doing that sometimes. And he'll be like, what? That doesn't make any sense. And I'm like, oh, yeah, you're right. Doesn't make any sense. And he's like, no, that's not how that happened. And I'm like, yeah, good. And then
he checks you.
He's my no man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're no man.
Yeah.
You have a no therapist.
Yeah, he is. And I really love that about him. I don't know if I would like that in life.
Yeah.
It's important. I have a coworker that I always call my no man too. He maddens me, but at the same time, he's necessary.
Right.
I think you have to have a little bit of everything around you.
What would you say to somebody who thinks they need to be in a psych ward but is too afraid to go?
Go. The only thing that can happen is that you want to leave and then stay. And then once you actually get to leave, I promise it'll be worth it. I don't know somebody who has gone in and said, that was a bad idea.
You don't know anyone who does that?
I don't know a lot of people that have been to a psych ward, except for the people that I talk to now after the book.
Right.
And one of my favorite emails that I got, and I've had hundreds and hundreds of people write me, and one of them, subject line was, Ginger Zee saved my life. And that was the power that I knew it had, because she said she has 3 kids. She has too many responsibilities to go to the hospital to check herself in. And I'm thinking, if you had anything else, that you would not have too many responsibilities if you had brain cancer, because you would attend to it. And she did. And so she said my book, she read that first line, and it was just handed to her. She didn't even know who I was. She'd never watched me in her life. And she just said what a blessing it was that she read that line, because she told her husband, I have to go. She went, and she did a 10-day stint, and she came out and she said, thank you, because now my children have a mother. And it was just so emotional for me, because it was allowing people to see that the hospital can be the answer. It might not be for everybody, but I think that it would be. It's just people don't try it.
You have seen some therapists. You talk about having a yes therapist. Explain to our viewers what that is and why it might be a no-no.
Yeah, it's just like relationships. I think every therapist, you need to find someone who is your fit. For me, this doesn't mean that they're a bad therapist. That might be good for somebody else. I did not need somebody, mostly women I saw, and that's, again, not a knock to, but what fits with me. They were just regularly, I think they were listening very well, and I was able to get a lot out, but I never was driven or no one ever checked me and said, well, that doesn't really make sense from what you just said. And I would consistently lie. I was lying to my therapist, which was a problem in the first place. But had they been attentive and not just saying yes, yes, yes to the next thing. And I'm not saying like go challenge your therapist and one time tell a lie and the next time don't. I just think that they need to be invested in it, and they need to. But for me, I needed someone who was a little colder, a little more medical and calculated. And I think that's the therapist I have now. I would be friends with some of the therapists I had, like girlfriends.
Yeah, right.
Because they built me up.
Yeah, great friend, bad therapist.
That's right. And that's what I felt. And now I would never be friends with my therapist, ever.
Yeah, too cold and clinical.
Yeah.
Is it still Dr. Wilson?
Yes.
It is?
Yep, I see him every Tuesday whenever I don't have to travel or whatever. Yeah. And since I started writing my follow-up book, I started writing it. I hadn't been to therapy in a couple of years. And I was like, I had told him that I'd written the book, and he was like, really, we had email correspondence, but that's about it. And then as I'm writing my next book, I'm realizing I'm not over all of this stuff. I'm not, and here I am trying to give advice. It was at first going to be for teenagers. And I'm like, what? I did not work through that. I need to see him and I need to learn from him, because now it's more of kind of this, it started as a patient teaching, or a therapist teaching a patient about some different parts of, psychology and things. And it's fully turned into me going back to therapy. Like 100% has nothing to do with the book anymore. No, the book, the intent of going back to see him at first was like, I just need to check in on a couple of things, see if right? And then through working through that, I'm like, oh gosh, I should come twice a week.
Yeah, I forgot about that closet of garbage I had back there.
Yeah, and I'm realizing new ways, and the skill that I think I've realized in my professional life I have is I am a scientist who takes science of the atmosphere and then breaks it down and teaches people about science. That's my job. I think that my skill has become a little bit more even in the mental health space of taking the science that this guy is describing to me, giving it an analogy in words that make sense, and then communicating it to people. And I think that's my next place in life, right? So this is the next thing I can do, is to translate, give analogies like the fence that I use in here. Those were the things that people probably came up to me the most afterward and said thank you for. That these simple tools that I feel like should be taught in second grade.
Absolutely. Because they could learn them because they're that simple.
They're that simple. Yeah. And then do you know how many people have written me and been like, I'm 50 and I've never used that before, and thank you for writing that in a book. Oh my gosh, so when that's the easy thing, why can't I do the next thing? And so as I'm trying to figure those out, I'm realizing, I'm not over this, and he's been helping a lot in both of all those ways.
If you're looking for expert guidance and community support on your mental health journey, consider a MedCircle membership. Explore your membership options using the link below this video, or visit medcircle.com.
What is your list of things you go through?
Yeah, so if I wake up with that, and I always describe it as kind of like in the movie, you know how you have like the movie that's smushed a little? I think for me it starts like that, where like I'm seeing black from this part. I'm just seeing the rest of my vision from here. I don't want to block my light. But that's what it is. It's blocking my light, and then it just keeps closing in. And I can feel it, and I can feel the darkness kind of, usually, depending on how serious that bout with depression has been. Sometimes it goes quickly, where it's like within a day. Sometimes it's a slower process. But it's darkness. That's the best way. It's blinds shut. Nothing else matters. I don't want to see, or, I can't function. And that's the depth of depression, I think, is that you have been this person the day before, and it's very confusing to wake up and either not feel like you want to live, or that you just, worse, are numb to everything.
And when you feel like that, you have tools that you use and steps you go through.
And mine is the transparency first, is that.
So husband and mom.
I tell somebody. I wake up, I tell somebody. And then I usually make myself actually ask, what are the factors? And a lot of times I'm able to figure out, we're moving from the city, which I've lived for 8 years, to a place in the suburbs. And that's a big transition. And most people don't do well with transitions. So being realistic about the things that are happening, because you can run as fast as you can and you get through things, but you never give yourself actual moment to think about what just happened and how that might be serious in your little, this part of your life. Then realizing how small a part of life it's going to be, kind of going forward and getting that big picture of, will this matter a year from now? No. And does it? A year, because this is a year ago, the last time I had probably a pretty severe one. No, it doesn't. I mean, it was actually good because it helped me to realize I got better at dealing with those depressive moments.
You're so good. But see, you actually know your steps.
Yeah.
A lot of people go, well, I have my coping mechanisms. No. And I go, what are they? And I can see that they start thinking about them. They're like, oh, what are my coping mechanisms again? Yeah. You knew. You go, step one this, step two that. Is this important? Is this big? Will this matter in a year? You know.
And what am I doing surrounding it? Have I already started drinking more? Have I already started doing these other things? What are the like calling cards for me? Because I have a lot of experience with it. And then who can I go to next to make this better before it gets to that point? And that would be I was already seeing Dr. Wilson, luckily, again at that time. That's when I know. And that already, I think it got me to 50% better because I couldn't possibly just going through those simple steps. That's not to say that if you're in, there's different types of depression. Like I said, there are times where you can actually I could, and I still know that. That's the other thing, is being aware of it and having other people around you aware of it is the most important. It's just letting them know, hey, if you see this in me, here are the things that you can look for, and here's where you need to step in. I don't care what it is, tell me this is happening, because I may not even see it myself.
Yeah. What role do you think medication should play in depression treatment?
I think that if there are a lot of ways to go about it. Everybody's depression is different. Everybody, how they react to medications is different. I tried medication in a couple of my years past. Medication didn't help me because I didn't have the tools that went along with it. I think the combination might have been good, maybe. It turns out I don't need medication. I don't have that type of depression, and therapy is what I needed. And I needed to be real. I needed to be real with myself. Honesty was my medication, with myself primarily, and then with other people. Once I did that, and just like love is easy, life was much easier when it was just like, it should be easy. It doesn't need to be that hard. And that was what I needed. But there are plenty of people, including my mom, who now is the best person ever. I tell my 16-year-old sister, because she started taking medication when she was maybe a year or two, and finally found something that worked. I'm like, you don't know mom. She doesn't. She doesn't know. Wait, no,
hold on. You tell your 16-year-old sister what?
That my mom is not the mom that I grew up with.
A different mom.
Different mom.
Yeah.
And wonderful, and I'm happy she's growing up with that, but that's not her original state in the best way. My mom is a person who needs medication, 1,000,000%. And so I believe in medicine. There are some people that don't need medicine, and I happen to be that person.
I knew there was no way we would get to every part of your book because there are so many levels. And even on my Instagram today, I was saying that your book is not only a dive into depression and mental health and how to navigate that, or how you navigated it, but it's also it's a career book. It's for anyone who wants to be in this industry, who wants to do local news, who wants to be a meteorologist. This is a career book.
Yes.
When people ask you, what is this book about? What do you tell them?
I know, it's funny. We had a young woman who wants to be a meteorologist, and she was in there, and she said, I started reading your book, and she's like, I didn't expect all the other stuff, because she thought it was just about my journey in television.
Oh, right. Yeah, of course.
She's like, oh, wow.
You're like, here's my psych ward.
Yep.
Yeah, right.
But that's what I tell people is I think everybody could relate to it, even if you've never wanted to be in TV or had I think that the stories are interesting and they're funny, and I think it opens up a whole level of the local news person you see. It allows you to see what they went through, because a lot of people, everybody in the news world that reads this book, which a lot of people have, and they keep handing it around, and I keep hearing from people, they're like, that was amazing. We're the same person. We're just, so it's like it's the same story. I keep getting emails like that too. Last week I got the most beautiful one from this young woman, and she said, from the abuse, like it was like a carbon copy of her life. So I don't think I'm that unique. I think that just people hadn't told it this way before, and I just have this platform, so I happen to be able to tell that story.
Yeah. What's the best piece of advice you can give?
So I used to always say, in a career way, is that, like find your passion, be able to, because people see it through your eyes, let that out. I think that the most general advice I give is it doesn't matter and nobody cares. Which is a horrible thing coming from someone who used to always want to kill themselves.
Right. And who cared about everybody.
That's right.
Yeah.
But I think that having that, and I actually have it where I've written it out and we put it in, my producer, who's like my best friend, we always look at it, and that's kind of our motto, is when, you conflict or something happens, you have to do that checklist of, is this going to matter tomorrow? Yeah. Probably not. Yeah. Is it going to matter a week from now? No. Unless it's going to matter a year from now and it actually means something to you, you need to not give it any attention. If you're able to get to that point and for the right parts of your life, what a strong sense of self and just decision making you can do from that point forward. Just let it go. It's very much, I've been doing so much meditation, it's built into meditation. What's interesting though is, so it doesn't matter and then nobody cares. Realizing that people aren't going out of their way to do something against you. You're not, your interaction, they're all in their own head, in their own world, and if you can figure that out early enough and just be, slightly empathetic to that, but realize whatever they did or said, or the guy flipping you off on the highway, or like, that's their own deal.
That's their business.
Let that, you stay in yours, they'll stay over in theirs. Now, the difference being, and something that I'm working on now and realizing that meditation is helping me, is once you build that fence and you're able to use it so well, I think knowing when to reach over the fence, knowing when to still connect with people, that's my next evolution of me. And that's something that, even with my husband, I've gotten so good at not reacting or being like, well, that's his deal. But he's my husband. So you have to care a little bit. You have to care a little bit. You have to know when to care, where to care, and then know how to help others. And that's maybe where I'm at now, is then, once you get that and you have those tools, where do you put them and how do you display them so that other people can use them earlier in their lives than you got to? Yeah. And that's where I hope this will keep going. Because even with meditation, I'm realizing, and this is brand new, that I'm just like finally figuring out, every time I'm listening, I'm like, yeah, but I'm already that way. Because they're usually telling you, well, there's a river of emotions, don't be washed away.
This is the meditation.
The meditation, Okay. So they'll say there's this river of emotions. A lot of people will stand there and they just get knocked over every time and they get drawn through it. And I'm like, so they're teaching you to not do that. They're teaching you to go to the side, realize it's there, be like, okay with it, okay. And then smell it, feel it, but then let it go. I'm like, no. I've been letting it go so much so that I've been like in a helicopter. Yeah. And I've been just staring at it. I know it's there, but I'm never going to get close. And I have to start, that's the fence reaching over, So it's like being able to be away from it isn't the right thing. So anyway.
You built your fences too high?
Some of them, because I had to go from being in a valley with people to building a tall fence. So now it's like finding the right fence for the right person and there are places where tall fences are very useful. Strangers. Social media.
Yeah,
that's the easy place to do it. And that's why I've gotten so good at that. And I have such a strong sense of self there. Being able to do that in personal relationships and then figuring out that boundary and having, it's like more of an electric fence. Like you turn it off or on and it's like those. So I'm coming up with analogies that way and going back in time and realizing how much of a helicopter I was in over my emotions and being able to lower that, maybe rope down at times, check that out, feel it out, and then, if you have to go back up.
I get it. I live for a metaphor.
Yeah, that's where I keep finding my strength, is being able to realize, where am I right now? Am I flying above it? Yeah. Kind of. But meditation for me, though this is the end thing, it's actually made me, I keep saying I think it's making me more anxious. It's making me the opposite of what it's supposed to do, because I was already on the other end of not feeling. And so it's actually making me feel the awareness, which other people had to find awareness in calm. I was way too calm, but it was a false calm. It was a lying to myself calm. I'm now finding awareness, and it's like, oh, that hurts. Or I love really hard. And your children do that to you, so that's what meditation's done for me. And I keep coming to my therapist every week. I'm like, I should quit meditation because I think it's making me worse. And he's like, no, it's not. It's making you more human.
Dr. Wilson telling you, no,
you're actually wrong. Don't do that.
Yeah, I love that. And that has to be right too, because I've never heard one person who said meditation didn't improve their life. So it's just a journey.
I know.
We'll all get there.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I so get the whole Ginger Zee thing. I so get it.
Thanks.
I feel like, this is my best friend now. We're going to go on vacation, drink wine. Make sure you get Natural Disaster right here, the Ginger Zee story. And I'll be very excited for your next book.
Thank you.
And don't tweet me. Yes, she's as great in person as she is on TV. I'm Kyle Kittleson. Remember, whatever you're going through, you got this.